Someone is playing next door, and I'm going to talk about practice, the repeated intentional refinement of a skill or understanding through effort, focus, and discipline with the goal of mastery or growth. It is bridge between raw potential and materialization, like sculpting marble to reveal the statue hidden within, or cutting through stone to uncover the diamond inside. Alchemy, an ancient philosophical and proto-scientific practice aimed at transforming base metals like lead into precious metals like gold. The stages of alchemical transformation symbolically align with the stages of creative process, where practice is not an external task to be pursued or chased, but an internal process of transformation, with its results naturally emerging as an outward expression of inner change. Just as in Jung's view, alchemy was an outward projection of inner psychological processes. In other words, the process of individuation. Just stay with me. And here's the trick. There are two kinds of practice. First, one that nourishes you inwardly, and second, one that makes you chase external rewards. The first is based on maintaining balance among all inner elements. The second is based on the overdominance of one element. Alchemists worked on mastering the four elements: earth, water, air, and fire, symbolizing the framework of the material world. Psychologically, these correspond to grounding and stability, earth, emotions and depth, water, intellect and clarity, air, and insight and willpower, fire. But there's always some kind of factor that interrupts a person from using their 24 hours to its best potential. We can put a finger on what is it exactly, but at least I can say that it feels like when you see a spider or a raven or a bat, and suddenly your mind is blurred and you are reminded of your instinctual limitations. But there is a secret ingredient: flow. Flow is achieved through a structured combination of stillness and action. So while making the daily schedule, the key to keep in mind is that flow and inspiration comes not only from working, but also from what you do when you are not working. Because according to the law of nature, we live in a world of cycles. For example, night and day. If we don't sleep the night before, we won't function properly the next day. Similarly, when walking, you rely on the foot that remains still while the other is in motion. Therefore, practicing stillness is just as much a practice as activity itself, as they both rely on each other to achieve the highest quality of execution. So, according to the alchemical approach, in between intense working periods, find and do whatever puts you in a meditative state, in the present moment, in stillness. And spontaneously, intuition grows and brings ideas at the most unexpected times. Like a melody that comes to you from nowhere without warning. Or intuitional impulses could appear in the space between notes, giving you direction. Before you would overlook the space, but right now you can see its significance because the eye has expanded inside you, and because when you look inward, the inner world looks back at you. Carl Gustav Jung writes, "The creative process has a feminine quality, and the creative work arises from unconscious depths, we might truly say from the realm of the mothers. Whenever the creative force predominates, life is ruled and shaped by the unconscious. It is not Goethe that creates Faust, but Faust that creates Goethe." As a result, the raven inevitably visits artists either as a burnout, creative paralysis, self-destructive behavior, as a reminder that the transformation is necessary. The first technique that helped me get out of the autopilot and burnout cycle was transcendental meditation. I do it twice a day, 20 minutes each time, and it helps me find that stillness to rely on throughout the day, and it also frees the nervous system from deeply stuck stresses. Exercising and reading are the other two. When I practice automatically without insights, music sheets feel like a blank sheet of paper. But when I put on lenses that help me see connections between notes, it turns into a microcosm filled with millions of star constellations. And to find my desired constellation, I first need to see clearly. And the lenses I mentioned are different kinds of methods that help me make those connections. For example, analytical practice refers to a method of deeply analyzing and breaking down complex concepts, ideas, or systems into smaller, understandable parts and then putting them all together to gain a deeper perspective of the work. Therefore, the components in this case are harmonic and form analysis, expression and dynamics, intentions behind musical signs, and historical and stylistic context. One of the 20th century's greatest pianists, Joseph Hoffmann, writes, "When the material part, the technique, has been completely acquired by the piano student, he will see a limitless vista opening up before him, disclosing the vast field of artistic interpretation. In this field, the work is largely of an analytical nature and requires that intelligence, spirit, and sentiment, supported by knowledge and aesthetic perception, form a felicitous union to produce results of value and dignity. It is in this field that the student must learn to perceive the invisible something which unifies the seemingly separate notes, groups, periods, sections, and parts into an organic whole. The spiritual eye for this invisible something is what musicians have in mind when they speak of reading between the lines, which is at once the most fascinating and most difficult task of the interpretative artist, for it is just between the lines where, in literature as in music, the soul of a work of art lies hidden. To play its notes, even to play them correctly, is still very far from doing justice to the life and soul of an artistic composition. Now, to discover what it is intellectually or emotionally that hides itself between the lines, how to conceive and how to interpret it, that must ever rest with the reproductive artist, provided that he possesses not only the spiritual vision, which entitles him to an individual conception, but also the technical skill to express what this individual conception, aided by imagination and analysis, has whispered to him. Taking these two conditions for granted, his interpretations, however punctiliously he adheres to the text, will and must be a reflex of his breeding, education, temperament, and disposition. Thus, we find that in a certain constructive meaning, even the reverence for the composer is not without boundaries. Though these boundary lines are drawn here only to secure the wildest possible freedom for their work. Goethe's great word expresses most tersely what I mean. Outwardly limited, boundless to inward.
He's a romantic. Schoenberg is a completely romantic composer in essence, and I feel we're a little bit stuck in trying to be very precise. Okay, there's an articulation here, dynamic here, an accent there, and you're doing a good job of it, but I don't understand the why behind it. There is a why behind all of these. Don't play the mezzo forte because Schoenberg wrote the mezzo forte. Don't play an accent because he wrote an accent. Think, what was Schoenberg thinking musically that made him want to write an accent there? And that's what I should hear, not that he wrote an accent. You know, I should hear so if there's a figure that needs an accent, how will it change the timing? How will it change the sound? How will it change the pedaling? That's, you have to think gesturally and not, okay, he needs an accent, so bam, I'm gonna play it a little bit louder. Okay? So you always, you have to be the interpreter. This is why we're called interpreters.
შემდეგი სადგური ნაძალადევი. Next station, ნაძალადევი.
თარგმანშიც იგივე არის რა. ანუ თარგმნელი იდენტიფიცირდება ავტორთან. ახლა დავფიქრდი. იდენტიფიცირდება ავტორთან, ისეთი მყარი განცდა გაქვს მაგისი, რომ აი რაღაცა მომენტებში გონია რომ გააფრინდეთ. ნოფის ადამიანი რას გზნობდა ამას წერდა და გონია რომ შენ ხარ. ეს ინტერესანტია.
ძალიან მნიშვნელოვანი არის ადამიანისათვის, რომ აი ესეთი ტიპის მიჩხმალულ და ტრამულ საკითხებზე როდესაც ლაპარაკობს, როცა მას ეძლევა ამისი გამოთქმის საშუალება და როდესაც ის საკუთარ თავთან აღიარებს ხოლმე ამას ან გამოთქმას და მით უმეტეს, როცა ის ახერხებს, რომ ეს თქვა თუნდაც ადამიანებთან, ახლო ადამიანებთან გააკეთოს, ამას ყოველთვის მოყვება ძალიან დიდი ესეთი დამშვიდება და განწმენდის განცდა და ეს გაზიარება თავისთავად და რაც არის ახლა ფსიქოთერაპიული პროცესი და არის ტრენინგები, რადგან არის აწყობილი რეალურად, არის რომ ადამიანებს ჰქონდეთ საშუალება იმისა, რომ ის რაც მათთვის ასეთი მტკივნეული და მიუღებელი არის, მათ მიჩხმალულ ხმებს რაღაცა ტიპის სივსე მისცენ და ეს ყოველთვის ძალიან სულიერ ძვრებთან არის დაკავშირებული და ეს ამისი ღმერთიც არის. ამიტომ ჩვენ გვაქვს ძირითადად ახლა ამაზე სწორება, რომ აღმოვაჩინოთ საკუთარი ეს ჩრდილი და ვეცადოთ რომ დავსახოთ სტრატეგია თუ როგორ დავაბალანსოთ ეს ჩვენი მოთხოვნილებები და ჩვენი მიუღებელი ეს სურვილები ჩვენს ყოველდღიურობასთან და რაციოსთან.